everyone, welcome to today's stream. Like we were chatting in the countdown, we have something that is highly requested, and we're going to be talking about Houdini, Side Effects Houdini and Omniverse. Something that is, and I mentioned this before, it's highly talked about because of the real-time simulation that is possible inside of Omniverse. We are joined today by Dimitri from the NVIDIA crew, Kevin Collins from the project management side. So we have all aspects from the NVIDIA side here representing today. And for, you know, a little spiciness, we've got Edward McEvenue who's going to show us stuff he's been working on. Really excited to see what he's got going on. But before we get started, we just have maybe something happening this weekend. You know, a little something. What do we got going on, Edmar?
The first live keynote by Jensen in 3 years is happening on Sunday at Computex. So it's on our event calendar on Discord, so you can go check out the details there. We also have the website there on the screen at the bottom. So it's going to be roughly, I think it's going to be about an hour long, 8 p.m. Pacific. So we're probably going to be hanging out in the community voice room #1 on Discord during the keynote, and we will hang out afterwards and get everybody's thoughts and chat about what they just saw. We're all super excited to see this ourselves because, as I've mentioned on a few different live streams, different members of the NVIDIA team are involved in different aspects, but very few people get to see like the whole thing. And so a lot of us don't know many of the topics going to be that Jensen's going to go over there. So that should be a lot of fun. Sunday, so just a few days away. Again, first time in 3 years he's doing a keynote live, so it should be pretty exciting. Grab your popcorn. And then obviously we just, a few days ago, we announced our next community challenge, which is in progress, called Set the Scene. So this is a very cool challenge where we just kind of want to see what kind of environments and landscapes you're working on. The one on the screen is from Tanya Langder, who's been on the live stream before, really awesome artist. Great. She showed here an image she did with ZBrush and Substance Painter and USD Composer, which is formerly known as Create. And we have a great Discord channel actually set up for this. So if you go to the Discord server at discord.gg/NVIDIA Omniverse, we have a community challenges channel, and we have a bunch of people that have been posting their works in progress and finished works that they're posting to social media now. So Frank Shang posted a Lord of the Rings image the other day. It looks pretty cool. We're going to actually talk about this on next week's live stream. So I think Frank's going to come on. Pekka, who we just mentioned a few minutes ago, an Omniverse ambassador, he's going to be on showing something he really did with weather in terms of an environment scene. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So that's only in next week's live stream. But forget about next week's live stream. How about today's live stream? As Wendy mentioned earlier, we have a great set of guests here today, not only from the NVIDIA team, but really honored to have Edward McEvenue himself here. Edward has an amazing YouTube channel. We'll post a link in the chat where he goes over lots of different workflows, different tools and apps, and really great examples of multi-app workflow. If you go to his channel, one of the things you'll see there pretty consistently is Houdini. So we thought it would be really great to have Edward here today to talk about the Houdini work he does. And then obviously members of our team, Kevin and Dimitri, are going to be speaking also about the connector and some of the things that are coming out in just a few days, actually, very shortly. So let's get into it. So first of all, the big question is, why would people use Houdini? What does Houdini kind of offer to creators?
So I'd say the biggest thing is non-destructiveness. When it comes to your workflows, that's one of the things working in 3ds Max, even just doing simple things like Booleans. It'd be a very destructive workflow up until 2024, where they now have it more as a modifier, which kind of maintains all your operands. But just that kind of workflow of, being able to set all your node-based things. Anyone who's worked in like Nuke or any kind of node-based workflow just understands the power of procedural workflows, where you can dive in at any step. You can copy all of your node trees, paste it into another project. It's just a great way to be able to work with art directable workflows. So if you're working with a director who needs to be able to quickly iterate on feedback, it just allows you to quickly make changes, and you can handle all types of different phenomena from water, fire, smoke, dust, grain, sand. It also has a ton of crowd simulation tools and Vellum for cloth. Basically, Houdini is an incredibly powerful I view it as an operating system for 3D. The ability to dive into any aspect of your nodes and break it out and do custom Python on top of it. It's designed for large studios who want to work at scale. So it's been more and more incorporated in at the indie level and at the commercial level, and it's just become embedded in so many industries today.
That's
And I also
that's
want to. Oh, sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead. That's a great overview. Dimitri, you
Yeah,
want to add
that's
to
a great
that?
overview. So what I wanted to do is expand on that a little bit. Actually, I've been using Houdini for 20 years now, and I have to say that I've it's not just the fact that it's procedural and non-destructive, but I've worked on commercials, obviously movies, visual effects, all stuff like that. But I've also worked on processing car data, processing lidar, processing, working for manufacturing. I'm working for a variety of clients that have nothing to do with visual effects, but they
Mhm.
equally benefit from Houdini because they can really, it's like a Swiss Army knife. You can literally customize it to do anything you want. And I think it's a perfect fit for Omniverse because Omniverse is also kind of like this universal tool set that allows you to really, Houdini is also great at kind of bringing together different applications, but I think Omniverse takes that up another notch or two. And I think this is a perfect match where you can really do any projects, but do it in a way that you're never throwing work away. You're working with a large team and multiple studios that have different workflows entirely, and you kind of have this central location that Houdini plugs into very nicely. So I really think there's a lot of potential here, and some of the tools that we're going to be bringing with in Houdini, I think, are going to cater to everyone, and I'm really excited to share them.
That's awesome. So why don't we actually why don't we start off by taking a look at some Houdini work that Edward you have worked on. I think you prepared a couple of different things for the viewers. We got a sneak peek before. It looks very cool. So I'll let you take over from this point on.
Yeah, so I'm just going to kind of run over some examples. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I just don't judge the simulations too much. This is just some work over the last week or so, just kind of testing like the workflows in going from Houdini into NVIDIA Omniverse USD Composer. So I just want to talk about the speed at which these simulations run. So previously, I'd done a lot more work working with like 3ds Max and TyFlow. And when it came to bringing in these simulations, initially I was actually exploring this project in TyFlow, and I was exporting it as an Alembic sequence. So each one of these frames is roughly 25 million polygons. And so that's one of those things that it was just incredibly slow to be able to simulate all that geometry, be able to export it and have it play back in a smooth manner because it was hundreds of gigabytes. So the fact that you can export it out of Houdini using Solaris and the USD Houdini connector, everything is brought in, and even the color data is brought in properly, and it generates all your materials. And there was very little overhead for it because the file sizes were much smaller. I think that's just the way that it packs the geometry, that it basically packs uses instances and then uses just translational data rather than using Alembic sequence, which is per frame. Every frame is storing that position, rotation, scale per frame for how it
You're
works. So,
frozen. Oh, he's back.
Okay.
so I just kind of put together this little process video. Are we good? Can you see?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is just kind of going in Houdini, where we jump into the Solaris view, we import all of our dynamic simulation into the stage, and then we just set up a few hierarchy things for the USD, and then that's all we had to do. Just using the Omniverse USD ROP, we can connect that in, give it a target, and export it out directly into Omniverse. So that's what I did here. I just set the destination path to world, set my mat or material destination path, and then this is the USD that it generated that I opened up in Omniverse. So basically, you just open up the USD that I exported, and just scrubbing through, you can see it already brought in my materials. Everything is playing back perfectly smooth, and I just had to then start setting up the lighting, set up my camera, depth of field, all that stuff. So you can see directly in the viewport the kind of interactivity that you get when you're working with the NVIDIA Omniverse, which is what I absolutely love about this tool. is that when it comes to actually sculpting your shots and setting out your sequences, you're not dealing with these kind of approximations in your viewport. Everything you're seeing is RTX in its beautiful ray tracing quality right within your viewport. So it's very fast to work. And that's the beauty of leveraging Houdini. You now don't have to, set everything back up through Solaris and render it out that way. You can actually then directly render it with USD in NVIDIA Omniverse. So here's another example here. This one was a more complicated setup. It was as I was going through these, I was trying to get more and more ambitious with the quality of the simulations that I was setting up. But this one had to be done in a few pieces for exporting out, but still very fast to be able to set up.
That's crazy. So how many pieces is that? You know?
I didn't calculate it, but this one was the slowest out of all of them that I was setting up. So it's got to be at least 80 million polygons of mesh per frame. So it was the initial model was really dense. I got it off of 3dscans.com, so I didn't even have to remesh it or do any kind of like mesh optimization. I just wanted to have all like the original detail there, not wreck it too much. And I just wanted to like push the limits and just see how well this tool would handle it. So this is kind of like a behind the scenes look in NVIDIA Omniverse. Once you have it all set up, this is my favorite part, is once everything's loaded, is just setting up the lighting, and really just, this becomes the hard part of like, there's just so many things that look good. You're just like, okay, I have to start making decisions as far as like what angle I'm going to use and how I want this shot sequence to come together. So this is just one of those things that I could just stare at this for days, just because it's so much fun just to be able to dial in the depth of field and see the motion blur and, be able to run post-processing, even add volumetric fog or all that cool stuff. And then, of course, you don't even have to stick to the materials. There's all these awesome view materials that now ship with NVIDIA Omniverse. So you can just drag in, copper, or you could drag in, a brass or gold. There's tons there to just play around with. So this is what I was saying, where it becomes a challenge to make decisions, because there's so many things that, so many options to choose.
Wow.
But yeah, this one rendered out pretty quick. So yeah, that one was a fun one to play around with. This one was a more... I was doing a more ambitious, can you see here?
Yes. Yep.
So this one's just doing like a building rigid body setup. I just did it on low light pass settings, just because I was running out of time just to be able to render everything out. But it's just more of a proof of concept, right? That we could take out a building from Houdini. So this is like a Houdini behind the scenes. I just had a simple RBD bullet solver and just put in a couple RBD material fracture nodes on there, just to kind of have some variety in the windows and the concrete structure. And then once it's in Solaris, same workflow, you just import your scene, add in the Omni USD out. And this one I had two materials set up, but you don't even have to. If you just want to use the original color data, it'll bring that in for you. And then you just set the target for the USD, and that's all I had to do. So it's really simple to get your simulations out of Houdini. And there's a ton of native support where I didn't even have to mess around too much in the stage view in Solaris in order to get that data working properly. Like it was intuitive enough that it was able to bring in everything automatically. So this is just messing around in Omniverse. Again, I just wanted to kind of showcase the speed and just how this stuff works and looks on the back end when you're actually playing around with it. So once it's all, you just open up the USD. I like to scale it to 100 by 100 by 100 just because Houdini kind of brings it in a bit smaller. But other than that, that's all I had to do to modify the original base USD. So this is one of the more ambitious ones I was trying to set up that I didn't have time to render out, but this is just a Houdini one. So this one kept crashing on me because I think I needed to do a lot more optimization. I was just trying to run through them to get as many as possible. But that'll be kind of like one of the next ones I work on. And what I wanted to do with this one was, I'll show you in a second here, is I've been playing around with Embergen and animated VDBs. So I wanted to bring in a smoke simulation of all that dust and clouds and play around with USD geom prims in order to get all those kind of tiny particles. And that's all entirely possible. So for instance, in this one, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but you can see this is a Embergen simulation running in NVIDIA Omniverse. So I'll come back to that in a second here. But so where has this been used in the real world? Well, we've been using it a lot on commercials, but also on the recent CES demo that we did back in December. I don't know how many of you guys saw it, but Houdini was used a bunch for a lot of the simulations. So for the saloon, for instance, this was used to animate on the building, and this was using mops, if anyone's familiar with mops for Houdini. So yeah, I worked with a talented team. I think it was 6 artists total, right?
Yep.
Edmar?
Jeremy
Yeah, so
Lightcap and Pekka Varis.
Rafi, yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
Rafi, Ashley, Shang Yu, lots of
Yep.
talented, incredibly talented artists. So we managed to pull it off and bring this all together to really showcase the power of Omniverse. But these ones just pulled in Houdini for a few things, like the building, like the rain. You can see that tumbleweed here. That was a Houdini simulation as well. So it was just really quick to snap everything together and have that play nicely all in the same scene. So yeah, it was a really fun project. And we even had
Toy Jensen
yeah,
shows up
yeah,
for his cameo.
yeah, it's super fun. So this is just more behind the scenes. So we had that original tumbleweed asset, which was using a point deformer of a high quality mesh that was just used on a low poly mesh in order to extract that animation data. And here it is running in Omniverse, just doing a test with one of those assets. I think this was the final asset that ended up being used. So again, you can just see how quickly your animation is playing back, and you get all that beautiful RTX lighting as well. And then this is using geomprims or geom points. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. It's just that you can export your points or your point clouds directly from Houdini, and you can have spheres represent those points in space. So it's really great for being able to do large amounts of point data, where I'll get into it in a second here, but being able to render out your simulations out of Houdini really fast, it's great for certain shots. So we can also do liquid sims. This is a project I was working on with Nestle. And so this is doing the liquid simulations. And this was actually originally going to be a Redshift project. And they wanted to model the that Vitality machine there and stuff like that. But I'll show you in a second how you can save a lot of time and cheat the camera. I just had a plane representing the actual machine itself. And so just using some of those Houdini simulations brought in here, having those plant growths. I'm going to rotate to the side in a second here. Is this still playing back okay? Am I frozen or no?
Yes, yes,
Yeah, it
you
looks
are
great.
good.
Beautiful.
Cool. So as I rotate the camera around the side here, you're going to see that this is actually just a plane in space that's occluding these simulations behind it. So it's one of those work smarter, not harder type things. And so this was actually ended up being really great because there's a ton of revisions that had to happen, and a lot of look dev that wanted for the plants, for the actual material on the simulation, for the liquids. So this actually saved me a ton of time and a ton of headaches because there was a lot of back and forth. So being able to have that final look dev quality and being able to send them that rather than these grayscale animatics saved me just a ton of headaches. So this is playing around with the Embergen animated V2Bs directly within NVIDIA Omniverse. And these points, this is actually a TIFlow point cloud sim, but it works the exact same way within Houdini. So I just wanted to kind of showcase those geom points and how you can have millions of points then be represented with these tiny spheres. And what controls the scale of them is actually the p-scale value, or the scale. There's a scale node within TIFlow that controls it the same way. So you can add a variety within that, and so you get all these like really nice tiny dust details or blowing snow particles, and you can combine it all together in order to create shots like this.
Very nice.
Moving on here. We got, what else we got? So this is talking more about the geom points. So I was just messing around with this one today. But so this is a Houdini simulation that has all these kind of spheres. This is using mops and just using some noise fall off parameters in order to animate these kind of spheres growing on. Now the thing is, originally I actually had those sphere geometry in Houdini and I was rendering them out with USD, but it got incredibly bulky just trying to account for all that spheres on those points, right? But I realized I didn't actually have to export those out of Houdini. So all I did was I exported the point cloud, the animated point cloud out of Houdini, and then I used those. It automatically, so here you can see just the points were exported out of USD, and then because there's a p-scale animated value on those, as soon as you bring in that USD into NVIDIA Omniverse, it will represent the p-scale value for the size of the sphere, and it will also account for that animated p-scale value. So we can do things like animating on, those points over time. So you can do some, there's been plenty of different commercials I've seen that have used effects like this for grains or, doing cell phone commercials, all that kind of cool stuff. So I'm just scratching the surface on this, but you can kind of get a sense of some of the things that you can achieve.
Yeah,
So this is,
I was going to say, we're
what was
getting a
that?
lot of questions about the technical aspects here. I just want to point out we will be going into details on that a little bit
Yeah,
later in the stream. So hang tight. We're going to get to those questions.
I know. Sorry, I'm running through it very quick, but I'm happy to jump back into each of these projects if anyone has any questions, and I can break it down further. I just want to give it like a brief overview of all of this, how this works, and just some of the simulation types that are possible. This is you can use Vellum, but this one was actually done with TyFlow as well. But again, it works the same way. So this is one of those ones I just played around with doing cloth, floating around in space with some, no gravity forces, just a lot of noise. And the ability to do look tab where you can just drag materials. These are all V materials out of NVIDIA Omniverse. So I just UV unwrapped it out of 3ds Max, and then I just played around with dragging and dropping materials in NVIDIA Omniverse in order to kind of get different looks. And then I animated the lights kind of spinning in a circle, and I just ran it. So I just rendered out a bunch of different shots. I didn't spend too much time on it,
It
but it
looks
was just more along the
beautiful.
line. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just one of those abstract visualizations which are really fun to make, and you slap a music track on it, and it just becomes a cool visualizer. What else? So last one here. So this is more connecting with Substance Painter. So it not only does Houdini, connect directly with Omniverse, but you can connect in all your tools. So Edmund was talking about multi-app workflow. Well, we can connect from Substance to Rhizome to 3ds Max to Houdini. All these things blend beautifully together. So this is just an asset I'm working on for a short film. But this was all modeled in 3ds Max, unwrapped with Rhizome, and then painted in Substance Painter. But then initially I was doing the look dev in V-Ray, but then I just brought it in with one click directly into NVIDIA Omniverse, did a bit of animation on it, and this is where the fun begins, where you can start laying out your shots and really plan out the short film that you want to create. So this actually had 40 UDIM tiles on it, so it was really heavy, but I wanted to have a ton of detail on there just to be able to zoom in really close to it and have all that fidelity still maintained. So again, just showcasing, there are other connectors out there, and they all work just as nicely to be able to bring in the assets as best as possible into your NVIDIA Omniverse.
It looks awesome.
Thank you.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
so that's lots of fun things you can do with it. So that's kind of the overview. I'm working on more demos, but unfortunately ran out of time for this stream. But I guess stay tuned on my YouTube, and hopefully can share more workflow tips.
It's so inspiring. So
Very cool.
first of all, like amazing work. Every single one of those projects you show off are just mind blowing. It's also very mind blowing in my eyes that you're doing this single handedly in all these cases, right? This is something you're working on, and you're working with some not little companies. You're actually working with some very well known companies on this stuff. And I always on a previous live stream, I was always struck by something you told me that typically when you do this work for large companies and commercials, Dimitri, you could probably speak to this also from your commercial work, but usually what in the past was very typical was very rough things that really would not represent anywhere near what the final would look like. But today it's a complete 180, right?
Yeah, I was amazed when I switched to Redshift at how much faster the workflow is. And then, of course, I was completely blown away when I saw with Omniverse, where it's like the whatever speed up I was impressed by with Redshift going from, say, Mantra to Redshift. I was completely blown away at the fact that there is no more real rendering time. You're just seeing it. It's the most direct and quickest feedback, and you can show the client almost finished as opposed to like a some kind of play blast or some kind of grayscale pre-render. So I think this is where Omniverse really takes it up a few notches.
Well, I just remember starting back even 14 years ago. The way I see it is that the art to seeing the final shot, that bridge is narrowing. It's getting smaller and smaller, the distance to it. Because before you'd have to optimize all your textures. It's like, okay, I can only do, 1024 maps or whatever, or then you'd have to optimize your geometry. I can't have more than 800,000 polygons, whatever, right? Like everything had to constantly get optimized. And there was just all these headaches and things that had to be accounted for. But now it's like when it comes to just being able to, I didn't even have to optimize that 3D scan. I didn't even have to optimize any of my textures. I didn't have to, basically now even rendering. It's like I don't even have to account really for a lot of rendering time. It's just that bridge is narrowing down so much that at some point it'll just be instantaneous, that I don't have to do any of these grayscale animatics anymore. I can show them as close to final quality for like just feedback shots, right? So to me that's really exciting because it means that the amount of art that can be generated and the quality is just only going to go up.
On top of that, the render, like half my time, I started as an artist, but I became a technical director and a pipeline guy out of necessity because I had to configure render farms. I had to like manage these sequences. Like if you want to show something to the client, you better put it on the farm, and it better be by a certain time. Because if you don't do it, you're not going to show anything. And so many times, like, oh, we couldn't render this. And like now we are in a situation where it's not as critical. You can now kind of have something to show at any point.
Yeah, well, even like the 4K budget, right? It's like, okay, do we have the time or the money to render it out in 4K?
Yeah.
And that was always a question of like, do you need it in 4K? But it's like now it's like it's not even a conversation. It's like, oh yeah, I'll just give you the 4K asset. You want 8K? No problem. Like, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter anymore. That's such a so all those kind of things have fallen away. So it's one of those things that
it still
you don't
costs
think
more.
about. It's been gradual. Yeah, of course, yeah. But it's one of those things that just that it's not a headache anymore, at least on the production side.
All right, we have a few questions Wendy mentioned earlier. Let's go a couple of them really quick. So Zia just asked, and I think you kind of showed this off a little bit. Can we do something akin to wind tunnel testing on surfaces using Houdini? I mean, your Blizzard scene actually shows some of that, and I think I've seen some other work you've done before with the race cars, the race scene. But can you answer anything specific to wind tunnel testing?
Sorry, can you ask that question one more time? Is that for me or is that for Dimitri?
I guess it's open.
Well, I mean, wind tunnel testing, there are special applications for this. I probably want to be using something like a more like industrial simulation software, because if you're doing wind tunnel testing, you are more about gathering data, and it's not about the visual. But like with Houdini, it's more about approximation. So you don't necessarily want to use Houdini for that, but the beauty is that we support all applications. So like if it's even if it's an industrial tool, chances are we'll support it. So I hope that answers the question.
Well, and I guess a follow up is I know Edward, you have a pretty nice setup there for hardware, but what generally are Houdini requirements on the hardware side? I guess it depends on what you're doing, but.
Yeah, I've just been working mostly on these 3080 Ti's right now. I'm working on a new rig to be able to put in some other beefier GPUs, but honestly, the optimization just even on the 3080 Ti I haven't had any issues. The bottleneck actually has been the RAM. Just the size of these scenes, it's like I just don't have enough RAM in some of these computers. So yeah, but as far as GPUs go, like just a 3080 Ti or 3070, you guys should be good.
Yeah, it's always a good rule of thumb to have double the CPU RAM that you have in GPU RAM.
Mm-hmm. Wait, we have a question. So Kevin and Dimitri, this might be good for you. Can you export Houdini nodes to Omniverse?
At the moment, well, we'll be demonstrating our HDA that we're about to release in the next version, so we can actually design an HDA, which is a packet of nodes. Theoretically, you could, design a workflow where you export nodes, but at the moment, no. We have a separate node system in Composer, but as far as nodes out of Houdini, you can build an HDA, and we will support that.
So that's a good segue actually. So Houdini Digital Asset or HDA loader. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and what's coming?
So the Houdini Digital Asset, also some people call it OTL, which is like a library of them. But basically, it is an encapsulated kind of nodal network where you can make a self-contained little package that has a little UI, and it drives logic that you design. And you, for example, a Houdini technical director might design like a tool to, say, populate a city, make some buildings, or make a procedural, like for a video game, you might make a procedural road generation HDA, and then you would use it in a different application to kind of plug some curves into it and have basically a mini version of Houdini running inside of this asset to process it and basically create an output without having to start up Houdini and without having to necessarily know how to, use Houdini at a high level. It's more like just the tools that you need, just the UI that you need to do a specific task, and it makes it very accessible for other users. And that's also really useful. For example, you may not have a bunch of Houdini licenses for your studio, but you may have some Houdini engine licenses, and then you can kind of use Houdini in a much bigger team. So we are now, in our next version, we are going to be releasing our alpha release of an extension for a kit that basically allows you to kind of rebuild a UI that lets you interact with an HDA. So you'll be able to use that functionality just like in many other applications.
Very cool. So do you want to shift gears? And you were going to show off a couple things as well, right?
Yeah, so I can actually, since we're talking about it, I'm going to share my screen, and I'll just kind of walk you through like an example.
Perfect. Everybody, definitely keep those questions coming. I love the discussion that's happening with everybody. Welcome, Chris Scott. I see you're in here. Frank Shang is in the crowd. Zia, of course.
Okay, can everybody see it? Cool.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to launch a copy of Composer. I keep on thinking create. We just changed the name to Composer, so I keep on stopping myself from saying create. So if I say create in the process of the streaming, I'm talking about Composer. Okay, so let's see. 1 second. I closed it and I wanted to reopen it just so I can show you like from a clean scene, just to kind of go through the process of actually adding the HDA and starting it. Okay. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so basically this is an alpha version, so it's like an internal test. So if you go into the extensions, I'm also using a laptop, so it's not the fastest, but it's fast enough. So if you do a search in the extensions for HDA, you'll be able to find the Houdini Engine HDA loader. Yes. Yes. So you will need 2023.1.0 to be using this. I'm using a build that's like just like an internal build, alpha build. But basically it'll be the same for the beta. But basically you want to be searching for an HDA, and this is where you would enable it. And if you click on it, you can auto load it. And so basically, once it's enabled, you will see I'll close this. You'll see the Houdini engine, and then once you launch it, it will scan your OTLs directory. Like that's what it's doing now, and it's gonna fire up this UI. You can actually dock it. I like to dock it right here. And then in the dropdown, let's see, we have a scatter example. And so I'm just going to create a grid. So let's see.
Hey, Dimitri.
Yes.
I think it's not showing the windows.
It's not showing the windows?
Not showing the windows that are popping up.
Oh, I'm sharing.
You're sharing the app. I think it's because you're sharing the app.
Yeah.
No, I'm sharing the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
See. Yeah. Are you?
Shared your whole screen?
Yeah. I could totally see the HDA. It's on the right. I already docked it.
Right.
Maybe I'm just moving a little faster. But if you can see, there's a plane that I just created, right? So I'm gonna make it something bigger, say like 7, and so I can. This is actually the actual HDA interface, and I've selected the HDA that I'm interested in. It's right here, SOP Omni Example Scatter. I'm going to load this. It was basically, this just generated this is the actual UI that represents the HDA UI in Houdini. And so at this point, I can see input scale. Okay, so now I can generate cook, and it'll basically scatter some pieces on it, and you can start playing around with the number of pieces, and adjust the various parameters that you would create. And so basically, this is kind of very basic example, right? Because we're still developing some of our UI components. But basically, when you develop HDAs, you'll be able to share your HDAs, and your users, your teammates, would see a simple interface, and they'll be able to basically interact with it without opening a copy of Houdini. And this is basically creating a background process that launches Houdini engine in the background and executes this HDA using the inputs. And we do support right now. This is a very simple one, but you can support like different geometry inputs like curves and stuff like that. There's other HDAs that I could show you, but we decided not to because some of the stuff is NDA. So I just wanted to show something to at least give you a taste of what to come. And then this is for the HDA example. And if you want, I can go into the Houdini workflow, but we can discuss other, field more questions about the HDAs if you want.
Yeah, so I did get a question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I did get a question. Do we know anything about the live connector for Houdini? Is that going to be coming soon, or is it?
So there is a live connector. It is in testing as well.
Okay.
I guess Kevin can give us more.
Well, to be clear, let me clarify that.
Yeah.
Right now, the current Houdini connector has a alpha of live sync. You can actually make live sync nodes. It's very manual. We don't have a turnkey live workflow in Houdini right now, but inside of the preferences file, you can enable live, and that's in the documentation online. And you can play around with the live nodes, and set up a live sync. But in our sessions, when we were speaking with users regarding, live sync, what really came down to was that users were inside of Houdini. They were modifying a scene with their HDA. They were cooking, and then they wanted to see those results inside of Create, all like at the same time. But it's a very asynchronous process when you're cooking inside of Houdini, especially a heavy scene, to then live sync and update. So what really we came out of that is that's kind of what led us to decide to try to bring HDAs into Composer, where as someone I saw in chat also mentioned, like Houdini is a pretty complex application. It can take, Dimitri's got 20 years of experience behind his belt on it, but it's not, the learning curve is harder for a lot of people. And they want the power of Houdini without learning all the complexities of it. And that's where specialized TDs can make these Houdini digital assets, right? And an artist can then take those Houdini digital assets and take it to the next level. And this is where now inside of Composer, the idea is that a technical artist created an HDA that in Composer you can load it, bring your scene in, and then you can modify the sliders, the adjusters like Dimitri was showing as a very hello world kind of example inside Composer. And then that cook, when you press cook inside of Composer, it calls Houdini engine. So that's another thing to be clear is this kit extension does require that you have Houdini engine installed. It requires that you are licensed with Houdini engine. So that's kind of where we are connecting. This loader is a connector to Houdini engine for all intents and purposes. I hope that makes sense. So then just going back to live sync, it is an alpha. We do have it out there right now that people can enable. But the workflow, like the nodes and everything is, it's not turnkey, right? So, you're going to have your normal Houdini learning experience and user experience with new stuff when you try to enable that. And you can feel free to engage us on Discord and the forums on feedback specific to live sync. But if your workflow is doing a thing with an HDA, cooking it, and then you want to see that updated inside of Omniverse, an export workflow is pretty fast. You can export while Composer is open. In Composer, it'll tell you instantly, hey, my USD changed. You click the fetch button, and it'll load, bam, lickety split. So it's, it's not live per se, but it's really fast iterative workflow.
So how does it handle animation? I'm really curious to know, for instance, if we just did a simple like rigid body bullet solver type thing, where we had some cubes falling onto a stage, and we had an HDA that was generating the amount of cubes that you want to have fall. How does that work for, does it have any limitations that way, or is this just for generating static assets?
So at the moment we are running things at SOP level, so it's going to be surface operators, right? So it's not necessarily going to be animation. It's going to be for the Houdini engine. It's going to be more for processing meshes or generating assets.
Is there a plan in the future for that to be supported, or is that
this is why we are releasing it right now, because we would love to get feedback and kind of get a sense of what people want to use it for. We've had most of our interest right now are from enterprise clients or our internal drive sim users who are developing the drive sim package. And so basically their needs were specific to generating cities and various assets to help them with the drive sim. So none of it was like animation. So, but like if we get feedback and there's enough people that are asking for a specific functionality, then we'll have definitely a goal, to deliver a specific feature. But ultimately, the way that the extensions are made is ultimately everything is completely extendable by users. Like we're not, we're basically kind of working on the framework to allow to really create anything, like support any feature, because this is all with Python, and this is all meant to be extendable and easily accessible.
That's a great point. I think that it's worth noting that we do mention this once in a while on live streams, but probably need to mention it every live stream, that Omniverse, some of the tools and the apps are really just examples, and they're really meant to give to the community to be able to build on top of, rip it apart, customize it, make it your own, whatever's good for you and your business. They're not meant to be stuff that like the be all and end all of this, application. It's really just like Dimitri said, we're foundation for everyone to build on. So a lot of stuff we'll release, which really should be seen as more like just examples. And Dimitri, really quick. So I would, on your screen, before you share again, maybe close out Slack and anything else where people are messaging you.
Yeah, okay.
And then if you use Slack, what I usually do, I just keep it on my cell phone and I'll look at the side.
Okay.
If Kevin needs to send you any secret notes,
okay. Yeah, sure. Sorry, this is my first time streaming, so I'm not.
No, it's okay.
No,
it's
we're
okay. It's hard when you're working from a laptop too. So
it's like a fundamental tool that's always open for me, so I need to get used to closing it down. Yeah.
Go ahead, Edward.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just one thing I wanted to mention. I forgot. I have to go momentarily, but I'm going to be releasing all of these Houdini simulation files for free on my Patreon. So anyone who watched it today, if you want to play around with it, I figured that'd be a good resource for you guys to have, so you guys can test out the Houdini connector, which is totally free, so you can try it out yourselves.
Oh, perfect.
So
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So I'm going to put it out through my YouTube channel as well. It's just youtube.com/EDSTUDIOS, and then my patreon.com/EDSTUDIOS as well. So it's not up yet, but I'm going to be working on that over the next couple days, and so it should be live momentarily.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks for joining us, Ed. Always awesome to have you on.
Before you leave, Ed, so I just posted a link to your Patreon in both chats for Twitch and YouTube. But we did get a question earlier that might have a good answer for, or Kevin or Dimitri. But Zia's asking like if you could recommend a tutorial series on Houdini specifically. What did you use to learn it?
Specific to project building, so building projects.
Yeah. In tag mode.
Go ahead.
So no, go for it.
Personally, I mean, I started when I was in like 03, when I was in college in SCAD. So like there wasn't much tutorials, but now there's a bunch, and I've been just doing. I've been finding a lot on just YouTube, on Vimeo. There's a ton that's directly from Side Effects. Side Effects has a ton of really good tutorials, and I think that's been my most useful source. Is really just side effects tutorials. There's a lot in there. So yeah, and I've paid for a couple here and there. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but like generally, most of the stuff that I've used to learn from is free. It's just available, which is great because it wasn't before.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was the same for me. You listed a bunch of great options. Intagma has been a huge one for me. They're excellent at explaining different things. Side effects, like you said, has a ton of great stuff on their website. There's a ton of people on Patreon who just release tutorials. You spend a small monthly fee and you get access to their entire library. The beautiful thing about Houdini is that you can see the entire workflow of their project file. The thing is, if you're working in 3ds Max, for instance, if I give you my project file, you have no concept of how that object or simulation or whatever came together, right? So with Houdini, there's tons of free HIP files that you can download, and from there you can see the node tree and see exactly the process that the artist used in order to come to the final result. So yeah, there's tons of resources out there for free, but I definitely recommend Intagma or any of the side effects tutorials.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So
Again,
before I go, was there any other questions directly related to the material I had before, or?
I think, yeah, we're going to have a lot of people interested in that link. So as soon as you have it up, send it over to us. We'll make sure we get it out to the community as soon as possible. And thank you so much for doing that. We appreciate it so much.
Yeah, no problem. I'm going to try and make the Omniverse scene files available as well. The only thing is that they were very bulky, ranging from like 5 gigabytes up to 80 something. So
That's fair.
Yeah, let's put a pin in that. I'll see if I can get those uploaded as well, but at least the HIP files for now.
Yeah, it sounds good. They can download that if they feel like they can handle it.
Yeah, if they're ambitious enough.
And then we also have a Side Effects Houdini channel on the Discord server, so you can chat about Side Effects Houdini on our Discord after the live stream. And Ed's active on our Discord, so you can tag him. I'll keep an eye on the channel as well. And of course, we love it when the community helps each other and talks to each other about this stuff. So share your workflow tips. But Ed, super big thank you to echo what Wendy just said. A lot of people really impressed with what they just saw. As always, whenever you're showing stuff, it's such an honor to have you on the stream. I know you have a very busy schedule. You're working with some great clients as you showed up before, and and happy to see your Patreon page growing. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so there's lots of cool projects coming up. I can't share them just yet as they aren't done. But yeah, this workflow has definitely been a tremendous boon to like all the stuff I'm working on. So I'm going to be sharing more examples on Discord.
Awesome.
And yeah, I'm super excited about that HDA stuff though. That to me is definitely a game changer as well, because you can generate assets right in Omniverse. So I'm definitely going to be keeping tabs on that. And like you were saying before, the fact it's extendable, worst case scenario, if something's not supported, maybe you can dive in and I'm going to take a look at it anyway, see what's possible. Anyway,
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. It's been a lot of fun, and yeah, hopefully we can catch you on the next one.
Thanks, Ed. You're
Thanks,
welcome
Ed.
anytime. Thanks for coming on.
Okay, thank you. Take care. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Good stuff.
Very cool. So,
Very cool.
so Dimitri, what can we share next about any kind of feedback that you're getting from the community on the connector and workflow? You want them to post that to the side effects channel we've got on the Discord?
I can show a bit of actual Houdini in action. It's similar
Great.
to the introduction that I've made for Houdini, but I can just show you really quickly for somebody that hasn't seen this.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm gonna open up. So hopefully, okay. Eddie, can everybody see the screen? Everything is good,
Yes.
right? So there we go. So when you install Omniverse, we get the little drop down, and there's a little connection area that you can actually connect to the Omniverse servers. But some HDAs that let you access Omniverse assets really easily, and this HDA also has the ability to add the server and connect to any location that you want. So this. I will show you an example of this traditional how you would load a layer in Houdini. So as you can see, we support paths because I've added the server through the Omniverse dropdown. But let's say I open up an example scene. I'm just going to browse something quick. let's see, NVIDIA samples. There we go. My favorite, Euclid. Yeah, I use this a lot. So I've just loaded this asset, and you see that, well, we don't see much because it's basically um, the lights. Houdini doesn't really support the lights out of the box, so we need to convert them to Houdini compatible lights, and you can see that this asset is actually on its side. It's supposed to be Y aligned, but this asset was not created for Houdini. I believe it was created in 3D Studio Max, so it has a Z up vector, and so you will have to rotate this asset. You'll have to convert the materials, you would have to convert the lights in order to get something usable. So for example, we have a node called light, I think it's Omniverse lights. So you would plug in the Omniverse lights, and this has now converted all of the lights into Solaris compatible lights. And then like if you wanted to make the materials, you can do we have this Omniverse section, so you could do Omniverse materials, and you would convert the materials, and then you would obviously you would want to rotate the stage, so you do a transform and you'd rotate it, and blah blah blah. It's a lot of hassle to get something in, so we've kind of simplified all of this by creating this loader HDA, not to be confused with the HDA extension loader. But anyways, so here all you have to do is just browse to the file, and it does everything automatically for you. It sets the camera. You can choose different cameras, right? By default, it's just set to auto camera, so it just sets the camera. It has the animation, so there you go. You don't have to do any of that. You can just load an asset, and it tells you that this scene is actually Z up, and it's in decimeters. So it's automatically scaled it rotated it. Now you can work with it without doing through all of this to load an asset, because you got to keep in mind that Omniverse is all about integrating lots of different applications. There's dozens of them, so some of them have Z up, some are in Y up, some are in decimeters, some are in centimeters. So to share assets, you want to be able to kind of conform them into your whatever working units you're using. So I'm going to add some more assets. So for example, I'm going to drop another loader, and I'm going to add some trees to the scene. So I'm going to browse to, let's see, what do we have here? Assets, vegetation, trees. So I loaded one tree. It's fantastic. Looks like a great tree. If you click on it, you could see that this tree is also in Z up, but it's been rotated to match Houdini's Y up, and the tree is in centimeters. And you could see that we've applied a rotation to the tree, and we also applied a scale to basically conform this into Houdini's units, which are in meters. So another important thing is there is some requirements when you're building a Omniverse compatible scene. Is you should have one default primitive and kind of everything parented to it. So this also takes care of that automatically for you, so that you can see that this stage with the Euclid stage, this Euclid stage has a default primitive called stage. And if we were to merge this tree with this stage, we want this tree to be parented under this tree's default primitive. I mean, not the trees, but the stage default primitive, right? So normally you would manually type in your import path, right? And that's how you would accomplish this. But here it's just done automatically. So you can see that now we have stage, and then we have trees underneath it. And the word trees is actually based on this drop down, right? Because it's in trees. And now I'm going to change this from asset. I'm going to change this to I want to well, hold on. I just want to show you how it's working. So we can actually these are all of the root directories that contain a bunch of assets, right? So in this case, we have a trees folder, right? If we were to browse, you could see that we have a trees folder, right? We have a shrubs folder that has a bunch of shrubs. We have a rocks folder has a bunch of rocks. And so basically that's where the trees is coming from. And this is why it's being organized under the trees root primitive. And so we can change it to shrub, and it will automatically load the first shrub that's in the folder. So there we go. Now it says shrub, and we have the shrub name. What if we wanted to load the entire folder and we just want to scatter these all over the stage? You could, of course, manually set up a workflow to do that, or you can just change this mode to variants. And now, if you look at this, it's thinking right now because it's caching all of the data. It will be much faster. The next time I go, the next time I load this folder, it's all going to be cached. Right now, it's kind of doing the initial cache. It's basically it just created. If you click on this, you can see that right now we have now a prototypes primitive, and all of the trees, all of the shrubs in the folder have been loaded as prototypes. And if you were to merge these together, you just see what you're seeing on stage right now is a variant primitive. However, let's say we wanted to just scatter all of these variants along like an object. So there's a scatter button. If you press it, it's going to basically create a plane, and it's going to scatter all of your primitives on this plane. So you can easily visualize your entire directory full of assets really quickly by using this. If I were to change, for example, from shrub to trees, it will now do the same thing. It will scatter all of the trees on this surface. It takes a second for it to load because it's a bunch of assets. So in this way, you can kind of look at all of the assets really quickly to see what you have. Pick the assets that you want, and kind of like manage these large collections of assets. Come on, update. There we go. What happened there? I probably have to probably do this. Sorry, I kind of broke it.
I would say this node system is very impressive.
Yeah. Oh, 1 second. This is what I have to do. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. No worries.
Yes. There we go. That's what I have to do. Scatter. So now we have a bunch of trees. And like the beauty here is that I can actually plug this original scene with the Euclid. I can plug this into this folder. Into this node, and it will actually use the camera. It will actually use the camera. Use the camera assets to. Where is it? Yeah. This is a little. There we go. I have to look through it. Yes, there we go. So basically, what's happening here is it's automatically picked up the camera, and it automatically created a camera frustrum, and it actually populated a bunch of points in front of the camera, and scattered them on the surface, right? So normally you have to do a bunch of steps for this, but this has done it for you automatically. And if you go inside of this, instancer, you can see you can play with the actual where is the seed? There's a global seed, and you can actually change the tree the seed value to kind of customize the scene. But the point here is that you can completely extend this. You can go into the instancer and change like how you scatter and add additional nodes and then fill your whole scene really rapidly with assets. In this case, for example, like we can just change this to some other asset, and it will just populate it. Maybe rocks. I don't know. So basically, this is just an example of how you can work with. It's changing it to variance. That's why it's changing it from variance. That's why I have to update it like that. But basically, the idea here is that you can manage a ton of assets, and oh, they're really small. Yes, I forgot about that. The rocks are really small. That's why I don't see them. Yeah, I forgot because I haven't seen I haven't actually touched these assets in a while. But yes, so the trees are much bigger. These are like pebbles. They're not rocks. They should be called pebbles. But you can actually change their scale. So, for example, right now the rocks are being brought in as in centimeters. If you force this and change this to say decimeters, right, it's gonna override their units and make them bigger. So you can quickly kind of quickly adjust it and kind of see your assets.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it looked like it
handy.
was broken, but it's not. Yeah, but basically, this is how this is how you would be able to. I found this really useful because we have hundreds of assets, and I want to see which assets are useful, which are not. Like, what do we have? And here you can in the drop down, like you can actually exclude certain things. Like you can say, I don't want to see like these rocks. Like I just don't want to see them, so they're going to be excluded from the scatter queue, right? So stuff like this is really useful. Let's see. Oh, okay, they're all in use. Gotcha. Oh yeah, and here you can actually specify. Like for example, I say I want to see just rock number 3, or I want to see rock number 3 and 7, or I want to see specific rocks, right? So this will let you kind of play around with the scatter. Like this is all simple features that I think would be handy. But the real point of this loader is to kind of give you a building block and show you how to make your own Omniverse asset. It shows you like you can use all this code. It's commented. You can actually see how it's all being done. And if you wanted to make your own, you can customize this and kind of use this code base to hack together your own asset, right? Because we have methods how to access the list of servers, so you can automatically connect to specific Omniverse server. You can there is inside of the HDA. You can see that we're using Vex nodes, we're using Python nodes, so you can, like, if you're interested in how to manipulate USD files using Vex, there is an example of it. Where is my Vex node? There is a Vex node in here somewhere. Where it is? This is the. Oh yeah, and by the way, and this is the conform node. That this is a separate HDA, so you can actually orient things without using this loader. You can just use a separate HDA to kind of just handle the Y-up vector and the scale separately without having to rely on this monolithic tool. You can see how we're loading variants, how this is all done via Python, and you can see
I love the
right.
script on the side. That is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, so like this is highly educational if you really want to get into Houdini, like into the guts of it and like figure
Yeah.
out the Python code, how to handle something. And I know there is a Vex in here somewhere. Maybe it's not in this um, specific HDA, but basically the idea here is that this is all open, it's all available, and it's there just like our extensions are ready for you to extend and do whatever you want to satisfy your requirements. You can do the same thing with the HDA. You can dig into it, you can hack it apart, and you can make your own tools that will automate and simplify working with multiple assets. This is why Houdini is so awesome. Like, we were at the beginning of the stream, we were asked, why is Houdini so awesome, right? What's great about it? Well, the great thing about it is that you have this infinite flexibility to take advantage of USD and make a universal tool. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. You're either processing high-res meshes to process like a car or something, or point data, or doing effects, or any type of work where there is no tools anywhere out of the box available. you can use Omniverse and you can use Houdini, and you can find a solution that works for you. And you can work with huge amounts of teams, and you can share these tools. And this is the real power of Houdini combined with Omniverse. So yeah. So hopefully this has been a useful demonstration, and I can answer any questions.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the HEA loader's not available just yet, but it's going to be very, very soon.
These nodes are available.
Oh, they are? Okay.
These are available. The extension, this is why I made a clarification. So the extension HDA loader inside of Composer, that's going to be available in the next version.
Gotcha.
These are available, and you can use them now. You can crack them open and
get in there.
And yeah. So all of these are organized in this Omniverse dropdown. And then we have these nodes like I've showed you, the lights node, which basically converts the lights into Solaris compatible lights, so you can see them. And then we have this validator node. This is actually very nice.
Ooh.
You would use this node before you export the scene, right? Like it will tell you if there is something wrong. Like it will tell you, oh, your materials need to be under a root primitive called looks, or it will tell you you need a default primitive in your stage. If you don't have it, this is not acceptable. But this one is fully validated, right? So this one is okay because it has a default primitive, and this one doesn't have a default primitive. It has a grid, which is not, which is this. Here I can show you. I can actually there is a layer configuration node, and basically because we've just created this grid, we didn't specify a default primitive for the scene. So what you can do is you can plug this in, and you can say that I want to set a default primitive, and it's going to be my grid. And so now, if you click on this, you can see that this error is now gone, like because now it has it has the proper default primitive, and then it has some materials. It's looking for a looks material. I don't think this has any looks materials. That maybe that's why it's complaining. It's probably because I didn't set up the scene from the start. But anyways, so the fact is that this tool set is there to kind of like guide you and like give you hints when you're publishing. Oh yeah, one more thing. See, this one it's giving an error because I'm trying to configure a wrong primitive. But anyways, yes. So another thing that this validator does, why you want to always place this at the end, is because let's say you've loaded the scene and you have it has oriented the scene to be in the y up vector and it scaled it. The validator actually reverses all of that, and it reverts the lights to the way they were, and it reverts the orientation and the scale back to the way it was, because this is meant to round trip, right? So whatever work you do, you wanted to revert it back to the way it was, right? When you actually create an output for this.
Oh,
so
that's
for
smart.
example,
yeah,
exactly. So as a matter of fact, that's probably a good idea for me to actually create a scatter just to demonstrate this. So now we have the scatter with the rocks, and so now what's it do? Material under root prim. I think there's something wrong with these. I'm gonna try instead of rocks. I've never tested rocks with this particular example. So instead of rocks, I'm gonna try the trees. I probably have to recreate the actual scatter. Oh yeah, this has to be variants, and then scatter them. So there we go. So now we have a bunch of trees. I'm gonna plug this into the trees. Now they're populated, right? And then they're gonna populate like that. There we go. Yeah, because the rocks probably had some wrong material stuff. But anyways, let's see. So now we're gonna test this. We have a bunch of trees. We've reverted it back to the original orientation with the trees. So you can see that the trees are in there. And now we're just gonna save this. Since we're already working in the loader demo HIP file, we're just gonna save this. I'm gonna save this to disk. As a matter of fact, let's save this as a frame range. From stage. Let's do that. No, let's do that. Let's do a full range export. Oh yeah, you don't have to do a full range. As a matter of fact, I have another button here that's called, see how it says keep range? You can also do auto range, and then see it just change the range based on the USD file, so that you don't have to actually figure out what the range was. And so now you can actually, save the entire range to disk. And this means that when we actually open the scene up in Composer, it's going to be set to the proper range. So now I can open the scene. It's saving up. It's saving it up. Okay. So actually, I can just browse through here. Let's see. It's going to be on my local host. There we go. Local test. Live stream. Loader, and then geo. This is where it's saved by default. Okay, don't save. And we're going to just set, it's already set the camera. We're gonna want to show the time range. And there you go. So now you can see that this scene has the trees exported and everything, and it came back out the same way that it came in. So this is important because when somebody is giving you an asset out of 3D Studio Max, that might be and as you can see, all the textures have been preserved. Everything is preserved. Everything is the way it's supposed to be. With everything scattered, and we can go back and change the seed and re-export this. And another cool thing is every time you export, we have checkpoints. So every time you as a matter of fact, I can go ahead and go into the instancer. I can maybe change the seed to something else just to change the tree, and maybe I don't like how far the camera frustum is reaching, like this. So this is another node that we created. It's called OmniFrustrum, which grabs a camera out of a USD file and builds a frustrum for it, because Houdini doesn't have a built-in frustrum. So this is a nice, handy little tool that will build a frustrum, and it's also really cool because again, you can go in here, and this is done entirely in Python, so you can see how I created the frustrum. You can see how I pulled the horizontal aperture, the vertical aperture, the focal length, and calculated the frustrum, and did some vector math, and created the mesh, and used that to chop away the geometry so I can scatter points specifically where the camera is looking. And this is really useful. So yeah.
I like it when the math's done for me. I am not the maths person, so
yeah, it's done for you. But on the bright side, if you want to learn it, like, it's there, you can look at it. It's the easiest. Like, people were asking, well, how do you learn Houdini? Well, you can hack apart on HDA, and you can look at the code, copy it, and that's what I do a lot. I would grab somebody's HDA. I'd go in there and I'd look at the Python. I'd look at all of the expressions and everything, and I would learn how to use Houdini. And this has actually been one of the key. Yeah, copy and paste. Sure, read it. So here I'm going to adjust the frustrum a little bit so it's not so far, so that the trees, see, they're not like going off the wall. So I've done these changes. I've changed the seed, and I'm just going to save it to disk again without changing the file name, because I don't have to change the file name. I don't have to put versions in my file name, because what's happening is every time you save this Houdini scene, or anytime you would export this, it will create a checkpoint. So you're never see, and it's telling me base USD files have been changed. Please fetch changes. Boom! I'm gonna fetch them, and now we have a different layout of trees. and they don't go as far, right, as the previous layout, right? And we have a new checkpoint. So there we go. We have a new checkpoint that we just created. So this is like really powerful because in a team environment, right? If something gets broken, somebody makes something, or forgets to version up. This is never an issue because we're always creating a checkpoint. So this is really great, especially for Houdini, because you might have something cool and then you can't go back because you've changed the layout so much, like the actual node so much that you can't recover it. So this is a really kind of handy way. You never have to use the Houdini's built-in backup feature because it's always backed up. So yeah, so this is kind of, in a nutshell, kind of quick demonstration of how to combine assets of different scales and orientations and assemble them into a scene very fast while preserving it in a way that you can round trip this, because you didn't destroy the original scene. You didn't change the orientation, you didn't change the scale, you just worked with it, and when you're done, you gave it back the way you got it. So and if you look at the amount of nodes, well, how many nodes did we use? We used exactly 4 nodes to do all of that. Now if you have to do this, manually, you'd be looking at a huge chain of nodes. That would be like 30 or 40 nodes, right? Anyway, so hopefully this has been kind of like a brief kind of overview. You're always welcome to ask questions on Discord. But most importantly, I'd say don't be afraid to just break into these nodes, open them up, and look at the Python. Look at how it's done.
On here again.
Sure, yeah. This is kind of like off the cuff demonstration.
Yeah.
But like I would love to go into much more in-depth setups from working assets and kind of show you how it's all set up in such a way that like to make it clean, and most importantly to kind of make proper Omniverse compatible valid scenes that kind of follow a certain, like we have a few ground rules, like you have to have a specific number, a default primitive, everything has to be underneath it, like certain materials organized in a certain way. Mm-hmm. It's not a lot of rules, but you just got to be cognizant of it because we're trying to manage a lot of different applications. So right. That's it. That's it for me. So I'm ready for some questions if there is any. And
I don't see too many right at the moment. Edmar, did I miss any?
No, well, Papa Chuck just reiterated what you said earlier, Dimitri, and said this is just a great example of how Omniverse is so easy to integrate and develop tooling that improves your workflow. So I think that's what it's all about here, and this is a great demonstration of that. Super exciting. I think we've convinced some people to actually learn Houdini, which is awesome. Yep. So we'll actually go into the Side Effects channel on Discord, and I'll see if I can grab all the tutorials that people mentioned, the links, and I'll put them in the channel description so that people can grab them easily. And as Wendy said, you are always welcome. Let us know when you want to come back. Maybe when the upcoming update is out and people get a chance to fool around with it, and people will have some more questions, and we can show off some stuff.
And if you're new to Omniverse and you don't know anything about our releases, these are never small. There's a ton of stuff in our releases. Our dev team pushes out a lot of stuff. So when we get the release out and you start playing with it and you're like, wow, this is too much, let us know so we can get some live streams together and really kind of help unpack all the stuff that's in our releases for you.
Cool. And speaking of which, we actually have, I mentioned next week's live stream is going to be on the Set the Scene Challenge, community challenge, but we're going to have Frank DeLise on next month. We're narrowing down on the date right now. I'm in heavy negotiations with him. It's looking like we're going to have him on June 14th. If anyone attended our user groups before, you're very familiar with Frank, because Frank always gives great presentations on what the team has got planned and what's upcoming for the platform. A really heavy focus on developers and developing on the Omniverse platform right now. So I'd imagine that's a big part of what we're going to be showing off in that roadmap. But get your questions ready, and anyone who has questions on the roadmap, feel free to start posting it now in the live streams channel, and we'll refer back to that when Frank is here. but that's just a few weeks away. We'll post that on the Discord events listing as soon as I can nail them down on the specific day. But it looks like it's going to happen mid-June. Thank you both for coming on today.
Yes,
really
thank
awesome
you.
to have your insight, your experience. Great to have you engaging with Edward McEvenue here. As you can see, he's just he's a fantastic creator. Really pushes things to the limit, and definitely I encourage everyone to check out his Patreon page and definitely his YouTube channel, where he's got a lot of great show and tells of different workflows, and you can see the stuff he's done for people like Dell and Ecobee Thermostat and Nestle, as he showed off earlier. So definitely check out that stuff. So thank you so much. Looks like the storm has held out.
We did it. We did it, guys.
We made it. So I look forward to seeing everybody next time. Edward is going to be on probably an upcoming live stream on something else, so I'll share that as soon as we have it. We're planning a series called Ask the Ambassador. So basically, we have several great ambassadors from all over the world right now, and we thought it'd be really cool to dedicate an hour to basically just talking to the ambassador about their work, how they're leveraging Omniverse with the other tools, how they're growing their business, and you could learn a lot from them and be inspired as I'm sure some of you were earlier today. So you have a good chance to talk with Edward as well as the other ambassadors. I think we're going to probably try to do one every month or so. So I'm working on that right now. But thank you both for coming on. It was really a lot of fun, action-packed. We will update these timestamps within a couple of days so that you can scroll through different parts of this live stream very easily in the channel description. Outside of that, maybe we'll see you tomorrow on Eric's live stream on Engineering, Designing, and Omniverse, EDIO, which happens, I think, around 9 a.m. Pacific, if I recall.
Yeah. Correct.
It's been a
Thanks,
pleasure.
everyone.
I hope.
I gotta drop.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Bye.
Yes, Kevin. Thank you, Dimitri.
Yeah, thank you. Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye.